Okay, cool. So yeah, my name is Shania Chehab. I right now do lighting and makeup and directing is kind of my thing. I just started my own marketing company as well. I studied technical theater and got a degree with an emphasis in lighting design and directing. So a lot of this is from my education in that and just from working on my craft for 5 years since I graduated. Yay! Yay! My directing style, I want to share this with you because I think it's very important, is very much a collaborative event. So when I come into this space, I want to meet my actors, I want to meet my design team, and I want to know right after that what they think of the script, where they want to take the script, and I want to hear all of their ideas before I even tell them what I want to do. That's my style. There's lots of different styles out there. Some directors know exactly what they want, and they have this very clear image and they want it exactly that way. And that can be great too, because sometimes with a big collaboration, it's kind of like too many cooks, right? So sometimes just having a really direct, clear line of what we're doing is helpful and good for productions as well. But I just wanted to start by saying that like my process is pretty collaborative. And when I talk about the first thing on my tenets, the actor-director interactions and collaborations, all directors and actors have different methods and styles, and knowing your team and their styles will help you have a successful production. So if you come in, if you're a designer coming into a production and you're thinking you're going to get to have a say in how the lighting or the moods are shown in a certain scene, and the director of photography, let's say, and the director says, no, we're not going to do it that way.
Collaboration.
Yes, collaboration. So if you expect to have a lot of say in how the production looks, and the director says, no, I want it done this way, you need to know your team and respect your team and understand where the production is going. So that also goes along with acting, because how you find a character can be done a majority of the time by the actor or also by the director. And maybe the actor comes with this whole character that they have planned out, and the director goes, no, I didn't want the character played that way. Try another choice. Or they tell you specifically, like, I want the character to be more angry. So that's where the collaboration comes in and knowing your team. How much leeway does the actor have, and how much leeway does the director have, and where are you two going to meet? And that varies from project to project and person to person. So important tenets that I just wanted to share to walk away with from the workshop is number 1, theater film is conflict. I had a classmate that tried to create a scene, like a one-act scene, that had no conflict whatsoever. And it didn't work. Like it was the most boring, like nobody would ever watch it. So like theater is conflict. Acting is informed reacting. A lot of times I hear like acting is just reacting. Yes, but it needs to be informed by that character, which you do through given circumstances and discovered circumstances. And we'll get to that later. And 3, this has nothing to do with what we're going over today, I just love to share it. Time, money, quality, you pick 2. All right, so the first tenet is conflict. So that brings us into our first scene that I'm going to hand out. There's 2 scenes on this. We're going to get to the second one in a little bit. This one is by our own Johnny Lewis.
Thank you.
Indoors, outdoors, and this is an exercise. And I am going to start right off the bat by asking 2 people to go through and read this. Who's feeling brave?
Okay, so this is a couple.
But not necessarily.
Well, that's what it says.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. It is, but it can also be parent-child. It could be a lot of things. And once you read through it once, you'll see.
Okay, I was just, what the director had written on this.
No, the writer. I wrote that.
The writer.
This was for an acting workshop that I held years ago.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
I'll read
I
it.
can read it.
Okay.
Okay, let's go. We've got 2 volunteers then. Great.
Read the first section, or here, I'll start. I'm feeling stuck. I want to go outdoors. I'm fine right here. Wait, sorry.
And
So
then-
every
yeah.
other line is it?
It's every other, so it's a little bit hard to see in the in the
Yeah.
copy, but every other line
Is it different?
is a different person,
And
yeah.
it's lighter colored. than
Yeah, a little bit lighter color.
Got it.
Oh, yeah, this is actually like a blue and,
Blue
it's,
and
it's two
red.
colors when you print it out
Right.
in
Got
color.
it.
So
Yeah.
that's
Now we're
why,
on track.
that's why it
Got
looks
it.
weird here, because it's in black and white.
Let's say that. Okay. I'm feeling stuck. I want to go outdoors.
Do you want me to read this with him?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm fine right here.
Okay.
And the two dots just means a pause.
I'm tired of being indoors.
It's cold outdoors.
It's stuffy indoors.
It might rain.
Yeah. I have to go
Where?
outdoors.
But we're indoor people. We've always been indoors.
I'm feeling restless.
You don't know what's out there.
That's why I want to go.
It's ridiculous. I'm staying here.
Okay.
What are you doing?
I stepped outdoors.
Get back in here. Are you crazy? It's not safe out there.
I'm fine.
Right now, sure. You just stepped out there. So far you've been lucky, but in here I'm safe and out there you're not.
I'm okay with that.
Have you lost your mind?
I like it out here.
Fine, suit yourself. I'm staying inside.
Okay, bye.
What?
I'm going to go explore.
Explore what? Everything's fine right here. I'm inside, you're outside. We can still talk to each other.
Well, if you open the door a little, we can even hold hands again.
Right.
Look, I really have to go.
Wait,
Wait for what?
I want to go too.
Great, come on.
Not just yet.
But I have to go.
Sure, I want to go too.
Great. I'd like to go together.
You'd miss me if you went alone.
Yes, I would.
Then stay.
But I have to go.
Why? Why can't you stay?
Because indoors is small.
It's cozy.
Outdoors is big.
It's scary.
Outdoors there's adventure.
Indoors, there's me.
Adventure is calling me.
I'm calling you. Come back inside.
I thought you said you wanted to come too.
I did.
Yes, you did.
Well, yes, I do, but not right now.
Okay. When then?
Later.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. What's the conflict in this scene?
He wants to go out. I don't want to go out. I want him to stay here with me.
Yeah. So that's it, and it just keeps coming back to this, right? And does the conflict ever get resolved?
No.
No, they just kind of end up going their own separate ways.
Or not, actually. The scene is written, it says it can end here with both of them staying indoors. Or Blue, after a moment of silence, can sadly say goodbye. And when this is put up on its feet, then you've got territory to work with, and
Right.
it
You can move around.
it comes alive.
Because you can look in each other's faces and all that good stuff.
So who's in control in this scene? Who has the power? Do you think you have the power?
Sure I do. He
You
wants
sure
to
you
go.
do?
Huh?
You're sure you do?
Well, sure, he wants to go out, but I'm saying, oh, well, but it's this and that, and do you really want to go? You can stay here with me.
What do you think, Ben?
I feel the same because we're already in the environment that she's comfortable in, so I think that makes her, in control.
What if you leave at the end?
What if I leave at the end? I think that would put me maybe
Sure.
a little bit.
That's right, I'd find you and kick your butt.
Yes.
Okay,
There's an afternoon.
there's a postscript at the end of the scene where she runs out and drags you back.
See?
in.
I knew it.
Okay, so this scene, I love this scene that Johnny wrote because it is such a clear, blatant, like you can't run away from the conflict in this scene. And there's always conflict like this in any scene with any character really that you look at. You just have to find what it is. If it isn't blatantly obvious, like it's there, you gotta dig. It could be with another character, it could be something within themselves, it could be them against society. It's like a whole plethora, but there's always conflict of some sort in a scene. That's why we watch TV.
That's right.
So because we want to know that's the like question mark, like what's gonna happen, and as soon as that's resolved, there's no more conflict.
It's a
We turn
station
off the
break.
show. They've got to add another. Well, okay, this conflict is resolved, but now it's added in all these new questions, new things. So, and as actors, we need to be able to find those conflicts and convey them.
Yes.
Yeah. So one way that we discover how what obstacles a character is dealing with, what conflicts they are fighting, is through given circumstances. Has anyone heard of given circumstances before? Stanislavski. So, does everyone here know the Wizard of Oz and the characters in the Wizard of Oz? Like, raise your hand if you're familiar with the Wizard of Oz. I bet I asked you specifically. Okay, cool.
Political. The whole thing is political.
Oh, well, that's. Mike warned that he was going to throw a water bottle at me if I get down this rabbit hole too much, but I used the Wizard of Oz for my senior thesis on the use of color in film. So that's a whole, okay. That's a whole nother workshop, is color in film, but.
Oh, that's a good workshop.
So, let's talk about Dorothy for a second, since everyone knows the Wizard of Oz. Can we brainstorm some given circumstances for Dorothy? What do we know about her?
She's in Kansas,
That's correct.
and
This will help.
I don't want to hug things.
I forget, does she want to be somewhere? I forget at the beginning of the movie, does she want to be somewhere else? Is that what yeah, somewhere up the rainbow, she wants to be somewhere else.
Has she always been in Kansas? Do we know?
I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Does she live by herself?
No.
No.
Auntie?
That's correct. Okay. What about her parents?
Okay, come on, folks. What about her parents?
Are they gone or dead or?
Okay, so, right, exactly. We don't. Wait, did they ever mention her parents? Okay, so that's a big one. So if you're playing this character, like this character clearly knows what happens to her parents, right? But you, the human actor playing Dorothy, might not know what happened to her parents, right? So you have to search the script to see if you can find the given circumstances that tell you why is she living with her aunt instead of her parents. If you can't find it, if it's not given by another character, by Dorothy, by notes in the screenplay, then that's where you start discovering circumstances. And that's where characters can be played completely differently by completely different actors, because Ben's answer to this question, his discovery about his character of Dorothy, might be completely different than Mike's discovery of this answer for Dorothy. And that is going to affect the choices and the behavior that Dorothy makes throughout the movie. Right? What other given circumstances do we for sure know about Dorothy?
She has a dog.
Toto, thank you.
Toto. Good job, Mike. Toto, Toto. Lives on a farm.
That's not hard. And you can
It's approximately 1900 when it's set.
Very good.
The neighbor doesn't like her.
Neighbor
dog.
doesn't like the dog. I actually glanced at the screenplay before I came in, and if you read the beginning, they say up to a lot, which to me immediately places it in the South. I mean, we know it's in
Right.
Kansas, but they're really like playing in on the Dorothy, you ought to get home, you know, so like, okay, we're really playing up that southern kind of atmosphere. Sometimes you can see it too in some scripts they'll drop the G on things. we're fixing to
Yeah.
make some supper. That is a huge dead giveaway. Fancy Williams does that sometimes. Okay, so you can use like the handout that I gave you too, but basically my rule of thumb, you know, I'm sure you've heard if you have a page of script that translates to like a minute on stage, minute and a half film, or 2 minutes film, depending on how much action is happening on that page. And I say for every page of script that you have of your character, that translates to like 2 to 3 pages of analysis. So for one scene, you can easily have like 10 pages of analysis. So when people in college were like, oh, you're just a theater major, that's such an easy major, and I would drop like pages of analysis and be like, you wanna compare this to the English major? Like,
I don't think people understand that storytelling, that's what we're doing, theater, film, it's storytelling. And stories have many pieces and parts as they go together. And I think that people need to understand that.
yeah, you're right. And characters, like people, because what are we doing when we're acting? We're portraying another person with all of their complexities, all of their minute, mannerisms, things like that. Like you need to understand everything about that person as they would, right? And that's where putting in all this time and effort to do your full analysis is going to help you create really believable characters, which is especially important for screen when the camera's right up in your face and your little facial expressions is how you're conveying the story to the audience.
Do you think too that, as we're in our environment, when people are mean and hateful, and people say, they're just stupid, I said, wait a minute, you have to wonder what happened in their life to make them that way.
Right.
You know, you have to try to understand, how did they get here? And I think it's the same thing in theater and film, same thing.
It is.
What brought
It
you
is.
here?
My husband's favorite quote that he always comes back to, besides allegedly, this is a lawyer, is people are rational beings. And it's very rarely that someone will function outside of rationality. Now, what you constitute as what is rational changes from person to person, but people are rational. And we'll get back to that too, a rational person is not going to repeat the same line over and over and over again, just to repeat the line, So, yeah, that's important. People are rational. And keep that in mind when you are creating a character. And make sure that given circumstances, I put it on the first page that I handed out too, but given circumstances always need to be grounded in the script. Discovered circumstances that are things that you can't learn from the script, the blanks and the missing pieces that actors fill in, or directors fill in, depending on how your process is going, those sometimes have to be a little fabricated, because you don't know. If you knew, it would be a given circumstance, but it's not, it's a discovered circumstance. That leads me to a very important suggestion, is that you take what your character says about themselves lightly, and you take what other characters say about your character lightly. Because as humans, we lie to ourselves about stuff. And this character could swear up and down that they have OCD, and they're trying to seek treatment for OCD, but you see in the script, or maybe you hear from other characters or something, that they leave dishes at the table. So somewhere there's a disconnect. Either the other characters are lying that they leave dishes on the table, or this person really truly believes that they have OCD, but they don't. So you can't always just assume that everything that a character says about themselves is true as a given circumstance. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And what other characters say about your character, sometimes it's true, sometimes it is not. Just like people, there's a lot of complexity and a lot of stuff to dig in there, subtext to go through. Cool. How are we doing on time? What time is it? 7:30. Woo! We're cracking. I love it. So let's take a look at the first scene then, indoors, outdoors, and what are our given circumstances that we see in that scene?
Well, we know that Ben here loves the outdoors. He lost it. And I wasn't so hot on it, you know, I'd rather stay inside. And part of it, too, she was fearful of something happening to him. But maybe it was a ploy to keep him inside.
Yeah.
I don't know if we really know she's fearful of something happening to him.
Or if that's what
Maybe
she
she's
said.
fearful, oh, that's what she said. And then I think Shania just told us we can't always trust people.
Right.
Maybe what she's fearful of is something happening to her if he talks her into going out there.
Absolutely.
But it wouldn't sound as nice if you're like, you can't go out there, what if something eats me?
Yeah.
I don't care if it eats you, but gotta worry
Like
about
that
me here.
commercial with the lion and the two, yeah.
Yeah. That's a perfect example, that's a good point. Do we know why you wanna go outside so bad?
Feeling stuck. Just tired of being indoors seems like the big reason. But I mean, of course, that could be something more than that. But that's what my character has said. So, feeling cramped.
Could be just not cramped in the space, but cramped in a relationship.
Cramped in a relationship, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, that they're establishing situations that, or given circumstances that seems like they care for each other.
Right.
Two people that care for each other.
So in the given circumstance, I'm not gonna read this whole thing, it's wonderful, I had one similar to it in college and I found this one today. So yeah, I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but you can look it over. But yeah, in society, we've got the family, love and friendships, and then other characters that interact with your character. And those interactions, those relationships can tell you a lot about your character too. If they don't have any relationships in the play, well, that's a big red flag. Because why don't they have any relationships? So it seems like these two are not strangers. I mean, they're holding hands, whether it's a child-parent relationship or a lover relationship. They clearly know each other.
And care about each other.
Especially now, I wouldn't go around holding hands with a stranger. I don't know, I don't know about anyone else, but yeah, they care about each other. What's an example of a discovered circumstance that you could apply to your character to give it more complexity and more depth in this scene?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
What is an example of a discovered circumstance that isn't given to you, but maybe you create it to give your character a purpose and a motive?
Okay.
So you don't know, or you mentioned that like you want to go outside just because you feel stuck. Maybe there's something specifically outside that you're trying to get at.
Could be wanting to get away from the other person, just.
Or maybe, let's say you've got something in the garage that draws your attention, that's a hobby,
Yeah.
you know? Or you want to play darts out there, you know?
Yeah, right. So there's like about 1.5 billion infinite answers to this question. And there's no right answer. It's just how you, as an actor, choose to portray that character. And someone who's playing that character is someone who really wants to get to the garage, is going to play differently than someone who's trying to get outside so they can go to the dart hall, is going to play differently than someone who's trying to go outside to find their dad. Well, you know, that's where you have creating your own character and being proud of the character that you can create as an actor. And then maybe you go to rehearsal and you have this full character realize, like, yeah, I'm going to play darts. And you play the whole scene and you're playing it, you know, as this like really excited kid is gonna get out there and play darts, and the actor and the director is like, no, you're not going to play darts, you're going to look for your dad. Okay, now you as the actor need to take a step back, redo some analysis, like think about how can I, you know, follow what the director is looking for. Sometimes the director isn't even that, like I mentioned, that precise. They're like, no, I don't like that choice, pick something different, try something different.
And
then you go
sometimes I
back to the
think you
drawing
want
board.
to see where you take it as
Right.
an actor.
And that's my, like I said, I love the collaborative. I love seeing my actors come in because they always play the character completely different than how I was expecting. And, you know, sometimes I like it, sometimes I usually just say, give me a different choice there. And I love that collaborative process in creating.
Because you never know what it can come up.
Exactly. I think I love art being collaborative and everyone having their hand in it a little bit so they can feel like they're, you know, it's their character, it's their show as well. Okay, so good. So, next I want to talk about beats and objectives and motives, which is another part of Stanislavski's method, which is where this given circumstance comes from. But given circumstances are pretty, I mean, like in literature and everything, you hear about them. So, the beginning of this workshop is a little bit wordy, but after our break and then the second half, there's a little bit more like try it out, do it yourself, and then we'll get up and try some stuff as well. So, okay, I think I put it in the page that I handed out. Given circumstances, information given by the screenwriter, characters, other characters, or inferred from the script. Discovered circumstances, information given by the director, actor, discovered along the way. Discovered circumstances also can keep coming up, and you can keep making new discoveries. Sometimes on closing night, which is the most frustrating thing. We've been playing this character, and you have this moment, and you're like, it's closing night. I could have been playing this the whole time. But anyways, discovered circumstances keep coming up as you get closer and closer to that character. So, super objectives. Super objectives is what your character is seeking for overall. Usually this stays the same during most of the movie, but can sometimes change because character arcs adjust and change as well. Maybe someone just wants to be a big fancy businessman and have all the money in the world, and after he gets that, he realizes that that's not the life he wants, and now he just wants to achieve happiness through having close relationships and love and friendship. Aww. So that is an example of a character arc in which someone's super objective changes. Objective is what your character is doing presently to achieve their super objective. This is kind of like your motive, I should have put this as a tenet, the fourth tenet. Humans always are motivated by something. You're not going to talk if you don't want someone to hear what you're saying, or if you don't want to say something out loud to work through it, right? You're not going to step over here if you have no reason to step over here, because someone told you to, or because it's a little bit warmer in this spot. People always have some sort of motive that they're following, whether you realize it or not. And your character that you're playing is that same way. So again, here, this is part of your 10 pages of analysis for every scene. Your objective is what your character is doing to support their super objective, whether that's behavioral, internal, how they're saying things, what they're saying, that all plays into their current objective to reach their super objective. Units is just a way of breaking down the scene so that we as actors can better portray that on the camera. A significant change in the scene, discussion, or monologue, where a major revelation, decision, or realization alters the direction of the action in a significant way. And I would say also any emotional change. If you bring up something that's a sensitive subject for another character and they immediately are going to react to that and change, that would be a unit change at that point as well. Beats is the smallest broken down part of a character's objectives, and the beats part can sometimes change every line. So what I would do when I'm doing the super objectives and the objectives, so I gave you an example of a scene that I had done before. This is from The Glass Menagerie. I tried really hard to find the screenplay of it, and I couldn't. So this is a direct copy of the play for stage, sorry. But it has been made into a movie, and I think the script was pretty closely followed. Is anyone familiar with The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams? Okay. So, a lot of people play Amanda, the mom character, as this over endearing Southern belle mother, forcing her children to behave a certain way because it is going to reflect back on her, and her really ultimate motive is just to make society think well on her. And she doesn't really, I mean, she acts like she cares for her children, but really it's all about, gotta get my daughter married off, gotta get my son from being a drunkard and make sure he's successful, because Lord knows I can't have some drunken son. What would the community think of me? I see her played a lot that way. When I played her, I took a little bit different approach. So what I did on here, and I'm sorry it got light on the edge, I can scan in a copy. I was trying to use like 2 different inks so that you could really see.
Just tell us what it is.
Yeah, so I'll read it, and then I'll also scan it in a copy and email it. So the black side is how I played her when I played her. And that's where she really just has this undying, like, devotion to make her children be the best that they can be, which she can see, but believes that they struggle to see. And it's not coming from a place of selfishness. Like, her reasons for what she says to her children are not external, like, oh, I need to care about what people think about me and my children. It's, I want my children to do the best because I want the best for them. So it comes from a very loving place. Yeah, that's not usually how she's played. So the green side is one way that you could play her, the black side is another way. On the green side, the unit change, basically Tom has just gotten home, he was out, they had a huge fight, he went out all night to the movies, and he just got home, and they're having breakfast that morning, and they still haven't talked at all since their huge explosive fight the night before. So they're kind of staying at the table, and they're like, should I say something? No, I'm not going to say. They're not sure if they're mad at each other still. They're both kind of playing this silent role, like I'm not going to be the first one to break the silence. And as soon as that silence is broken, and Tom says, "Mother," that's a unit change. They're no longer like, I don't know if I'm going to say anything. Like, that person's not going to say that, I'm not going to say anything. And as soon as Tom decides to just let it go, say, "Mother, I want to apologize," okay, that's going to change how she reacts in that scene now, because her objective is no longer to like be mad or to win the argument. She's won the argument because Tom just broke the silence. "Mother, I apologize, Mother. I'm sorry for what I said, everything, I didn't mean it." So, beat change. Amanda immediately begins sobbing. So whatever you decide she's doing before then, huffing around or just ignoring her son or whatever, she just turns to him and gives him all of her attention for whatever reason and just starts sobbing. That could be played because she's playing the victim and she's trying to regain power. She's trying to make him feel like empathetic towards her. It could also be played because she feels like she was being too hard on her children and was actually limiting them in achieving their potential, which is her super objective for her kids to achieve their potential, and she felt like she just created more things on top of it that made it more difficult for them to reach that goal. So it could be sincere. Okay, they talk a little bit more. Beat change again, and I've had to put up a solitary battle all these years, but you're my right hand Bower. So right when she says, "But you're my right hand Bower," that's to me a beat change. Because she's playing it on the green side, she's playing this like victim. I need my son to feel bad so that he'll listen to me and stop, trying to win the argument and be mean. And then, boom, now I'm going to say something nice about him. So that's like, okay, if I compliment him, I'll get him back on my side, and he's going to listen to what I'm about to say next. It could also be her realizing that like her son has been there for her and she's put a lot of pressure on him, and oh man, I feel so horrible about what I've done. How could I have made things harder on you when you're always there for me? And I'm going to tell you that I know that I'm doing this. I know that you've been there for me, and I know I'm making things difficult. And she's like almost like apologizing in that line, depending on how you play it. Next beat change I have at the bottom of the page. On the green side, I had this where she's like trying to like build up the courage to say what she wants to say. Basically, she knows he went out drinking last night, and she's like super worried that he's just gonna be this drunk kid. So she's trying to like let him know, hey, I know you're out drinking last night, and I don't want you to do that. But her being overbearing is what caused the fight in the last scene. So I think she's like trying to slowly work up to it because she knows like as soon as she says this, he might be like, really, we just got over it, and now you're already coming down on me again. So I read that on the green side that this is like word vomit of her like testing the waters, seeing how open he is to listen to her. And then on the other side, I felt that it wasn't just like empty compliments, that she was trying to fix some of the things that she had wronged by like focusing on their achievements and almost trying to convince herself that like her children will be able to achieve their potential without her meddling in it. All right, and then she finally spits it out. Promise, son, you'll never be a drunkard. He says, okay, I'll never be a drunkard, Mom. This is like on the green side, like, boom, I got him. He listened to what I said. He came back and promised he wouldn't be a drunkard. He's now listening to me and doing exactly what I'm telling him to do, which is the reason we were fighting last night, but now I've won. I've won the argument, and I've made him listen to me, and I've made him do what I want him to do. I'm in charge, and now she very clearly has the power in this moment. Directorially, like, she would stand up above him at this point because she now has the power. On the other side, that's what frightened me so, that you've been drinking. I played this like she just kind of let it go. Like, she just wanted him to know, like, that's all. Like, I'm just worried that you were drinking. Like, all I care about is your potential, like, you reaching your potential. I know you can do better for yourself. I see it in you. And I put a lot of the focus when I played it on eat a bowl of Purina, which again is her just telling him what to do, but in her mindset and the character I played, how can she expect her son to reach his potential at work if he doesn't have a full stomach? So she's trying really hard, like, I will cook for you, I will clean for you, I will do whatever it takes, just please eat this food, please just, you know. Some Purina. I think it's like, this was part of my research.
Farina would be like a cereal.
Purina, I think it was like grits. We played it as if it was like grits. Yeah. And the scene goes on. I didn't do beat changes for the rest of the scene. You can see where I drew the line. And then at the very end, she says, I want to talk to you about something. This is what she's been trying to spit out for the past 3 scenes. What is it, Mom? What is it that you want to discuss? And finally she says, Laura, your sister. I want to discuss your sister. And Tom puts down his coffee cup slowly. That's clearly a unit change. There we see the emotional shift where he's like, you're bringing this up again. All right. That was a really, really long explanation. I'm sorry that I was talking so much.
That's okay.
So on the back of In and Out, there's a monologue from the most amazing live play I've ever seen, ever. And if it ever comes to these shores, buy a ticket and go see it. It is incredible. That is the Oresteia from the Aeschylus series, adapted by Robert Icke and performed by the Almeida Theater. And this is a monologue by Clytemnestra. So I want everyone to go through and give it a try. Do some beats and objectives, super objectives for Clytemnestra in her monologue. So to let you know the given circumstances, what's going on right now, it's a rendition of the famous Greek play. So basically her husband is at war. In order to win the war, they had to change the winds. And to change the winds, her husband believed that he had to sacrifice something dear to him, so he killed their daughter. And shortly after he kills their daughter, they get news that the war has ended, is over. And her husband is still away at war. And she's at home and she's talking to Orestes, which is her son, her grown son. And she knew because she kind of caught wind that her husband was planning on killing her daughter, and she kind of confronted him about it and said, like, you don't dare do this. Like, this is not going to help. And he went behind her back and did it anyways. So she's in severe pain. Actually, the scene before this, when she comes in and realizes that he's killed her daughter, and she says, what have you done, what have you done? And she just screams this blood-curdling scream. And in the live production, they opened all the doors of the theater, and they put big industrial fans, and they blew papers, and it became a tornado in the theater, and the lights started flashing, and she was just screaming at the top of her lungs, because the winds had changed. And then all the lights came up, and they say, please be upstanding, we are taking our first break now. It's the first of 3, it was a 4.5-hour play, first of 3 intermissions.
That's
So
very,
that is
very
what happened.
Artaud-ian.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's very Artaud-ian.
Yeah,
Antoine
yes.
Artaud, yeah. Break that
Yes.
wall.
So that is what happened just before she shares this monologue. So there's some information. So go ahead, take 10 minutes, see what you come up with. There's no right or wrong answer. Every actor is gonna play this character a little different. So, I don't want it to make anyone feel pressured to share anything that they did, but if anyone wants to share, you're more than welcome to. Any discoveries that you made in doing that.
I had a thought or like a question. And I don't know the play extremely well, so
Sure.
I'm just kind of taking a stab. But just talking about like super objective here, would it be counterproductive to say the super objective is something they know they can't have, but they still want anyway, like her daughter to be back? Or would that be maybe a little bit pointless to establish a super objective as something that can't be done? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that would be okay. I feel like there might be people that disagree with me on that, but I think that's okay. Because a super objective is what's going to kind of be your guiding path to your behavior and what you say. So if your super objective is like, I just want my daughter back, of course that's never going to happen, but that is going to influence all the rest of your decisions. And that's, then if your super objective is like, I want my daughter back, does she recognize that that's not possible? If she does, is she trying to reconcile with not getting that back? Maybe that would then be the super objective, is trying to reconcile with the loss of her daughter, knowing she can't get her back, or is she trying to get revenge for the fact that she can't have her daughter back, or any X amount of possible other things that can come from, I want my daughter back, I know I can't get her back.
Because it's probably a little more helpful for the actor to give something a little bit more concrete that can actually be done. So, yeah.
Sure. Concrete is always very helpful as an actor, for sure.
I think she's trying to get Orestes to believe that she knows this has been won. This is over. This has been won.
Yeah.
How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? You know? And as she goes along to present that in these different variations of beats, here, there, and there, and you as the audience, you're listening to this, wow, yeah, look, that makes sense. Well, what was she thinking about that? Especially in the long monologue, and it's still light inside your brain, impulses burning, firing forward, carrying signs, continuous light. You know, that's looking inside, isn't it? So that's a big clue on her character, isn't it?
And it is interesting, later on in the play, she kills Agamemnon, and in the stage directions, it tells you that she is calm, collected, and like, I don't know, like intellectual about the whole thing. And at no point does she's just calm, like this is just what had to be done.
Because if you put your emotion in it, then you lose that control.
Right.
You know, if you
So
just
she
keep
is-
the intellectual part, and then you gotta put that emotion off to the side.
Right. So she could be played very introspective. Which is interesting you say that because for a lot of the next two scenes, she's actually in front of the camera as Agamemnon, as like a politician, and is like a high ranking, yep. And so she has to also play this politician's wife part. And when she's doing news interviews and he's coming home and everything, and it's definitely she's playing the part of, oh, we're so glad the war's over and I can't wait for my husband to be back and we're gonna reunite the family. And I think if you play her like this is all strings that she's pulling and manipulation, maybe she's very introspective. She knows exactly what's going on, exactly what she's going to do, very calculated. That's a good way to play the character. Anything else?
This first paragraph of the monologue reminds me of what I've read of people who've had spiritual experiences and they see everything connected by strings of light, or like somebody who's having an LSD experience and they see like the bodies, the trees, the ground, and everything connected by strings of light. And to me, that's like a ultimate knowingness. It's like she knows on this level that everything is connected, and it's, you know, there's no doubt in her mind, and that's the place she's speaking from.
And that's interesting because then playing her, you could play her that prior to her daughter's death, like maybe she didn't have that knowledge, and her daughter's death triggered and awoke something in her.
Yeah.
Maybe she had that knowledge the whole time. I don't know. It's up to the actor to decide. When I read this monologue, it immediately struck me. I would play her as just this is all. This is just all effing pointless. Like, my daughter is dead. Why do we even have wars? Why do you call a chair a chair? What is the point of it all? Yeah. She's just at this point, like, she's like, the life has, like, no purpose, no meaning. Yeah. She's still gonna keep living because she's got her other objectives and motives, but in this specific monologue, I read that a lot of, like, war is meaningless, death is, I mean, why, like, why? Why not ever still be alive? Okay, so it's 8:12, so at this point we're going to take a brief pause, just like the Almeida Theater. So if you need to use the bathroom or get any refreshments or anything like that, and then we'll jump back into it. Okay?
This is fun.
Like a 5-10 minute break. Thank you. Yeah, that was definitely the wordy part. We're past the wordy part. Sorry, sometimes I leave stuff like a lecture because I teach so much, but we're into the more interactive part now coming up, so. Okay, so this next one is totally just like me wanting to put my 2 cents about something in, because one of my biggest pet peeves as a director is seeing an actor come in and repeat the same line over and over again the same exact way. Because like people don't just repeat themselves the same way. People don't just repeat themselves the same way. People don't just repeat themselves the same way. Which I totally get. When you're memorizing lines, how you memorize a line is gonna affect like your inflection. And a lot of times it's easier to remember your lines when you recite them the same way that you memorize them. That's why you want to memorize your lines really far in advance, so then when they become very comfortable, you can add those tonal changes and those inflections and change things, and you're not relying on how you're saying it to remember the line. Just be really prepared, because I've worked with a lot of student actors, and a lot of times the trap you fall in is just barely being ready for off-book day and not really knowing the lines until like 2 or 3 days before closing. And that's really when you get started diving into the character, because the lines are just automatically there. And by that point, you're past the point of like developing the character and letting other people in the play feed off of that, because you're close to closing. So same thing in film, like you're there, you show up, it's an even faster timeline, so you really need to be prepared and have your character developed and like prepared and know what's up when you get there. Because time is money, and you're shooting a scene in a day and then you're like moving on. if you make a new discovery, like, you don't get to go back and like reshoot a scene or something, so. It's really important that you have all that done and prepared before you get to in the thick of it. So, I'm gonna hand out this scene from Ingvar Bergman's Shame, or Skammen, if you speak Swedish. German, Swedish?
Swedish.
Swedish, that's what I thought.
Swedish.
Just stay with my first. Is anyone familiar with this movie, this screenplay? No? Shame. Okay, so basically, it's a fictional story. It's really good. You can rent it on Amazon. Even having been produced in 1967, it's 100% relevant to today. And it's done quite well. So I do suggest you go watch it. I think it takes place near Switzerland. I think it was like a commentary on war coming from Switzerland. Oh, which is, I forgot to mention it, in your given circumstances, there's also cedar information, which is like breaking the fourth wall, like information about the playwright, information about the production, because different things happen in different geological areas. A screenplay written in Europe might not be a big deal to have like nudity in it, for instance, whereas in America, that's going to be a huge, like, there's a reason someone is nude in the play in America usually. So just like knowing your cedar information, which isn't necessarily the world of the screenplay, but the world in which the screenplay was written. So who wrote it, and any biases that the screenplay writer might have, or the first production team, or where it was produced, all that stuff. That's like given circumstances and cedar information. So from the cedar information, knowing that this was Swiss produced and they're neutral when it comes to wars and stuff, it seemed like it was kind of a commentary on World War II from a neutral bystander, just like the horrors of war. And basically it's this married couple, and to escape the war, they moved onto a secluded island, and they just had a farm there and they were living, but the war follows them to the island. And it's this whole story of everything that they're put through in the war. Like at one point, a guy holds a gun up to the lady and says, you gotta say on screen that, you know, you stand with us and that we freed you and whatever, and so she does because he's threatening to shoot her. And later they're arrested for her, you know, aligning with the enemies when really she was just trying to save her own life. Stuff like that. So this is towards the end of the screenplay. And I'll tell you at the beginning, the wife was pretty cold and like removed from the husband. And the husband was very empathetic and loving. And by this point, they kind of like came together really closely during the middle when they were really in the thick of the war and just trying to survive and trying to get off the island and trying all these different like tactics. But by this point, like there's starting to be a shift because it's almost the end, and at the end, they've kind of taken opposite character arcs, and her husband no longer really has empathy. One of the armies forces him to kill someone, or like, I don't think, oh, you didn't watch it with me. I don't think he actually killed him, but like he dropped the gun and then another soldier picks it up and shoots the guy right in front of him. So he's like, the husband has been put in that position, and basically lost his empathy through the course of the movie. And his wife has somehow like gained her empathy more. They kind of flip-flop. And this scene is like really close to the end. So that arc is still happening, but this is the first scene where it really, really becomes clear. They come home, their whole house has been destroyed. It was burned down by one of the armies. The only thing they have that left is this little glass greenhouse. And they have come home to their greenhouse, and there's a soldier, a runaway soldier, who's sleeping in the greenhouse. And that's where this scene takes place. I picked it specifically because Eva says multiple times, what did you do with him? What did you do with the boy? They come home, the boy is in the hay. I mean, you can read it, it's all in the screenplay instructions there, directions. the guy basically like takes him out. In the movie, you hear a gunshot, and then he just comes back in. And he comes back in carrying the boy's boots. So Eva is saying, what did you do with him? What did you do with him? What did you do with him? And Jen is just kind of like blowing her off. Still talking about, we gotta get the boat to the mainland. I took his equipment. Look, my shoes were falling apart. His shoes are valuable. Doesn't answer Eva's question. So the important thing to note about this is like Eva's objective in this scene, right, is to get, maybe, well, depending on how you play it, maybe it's to get Jan to admit to what he's done. Because she knows, like she heard the gunshot, she knows what happened. I guess you could play it that she doesn't, and she's really trying to, did you shoot to scare him off or something, but I would play like she knows that Jan shot the soldier, and she's trying to get him to admit that. And he's refusing to admit it. He's just like avoiding the subject. So because Jan, like she's gonna try and say that line different ways, because the first time she says it, it doesn't work. He blows it off. So she's gonna say it a different way. Like, no, okay, I think she says, what did you do with him? And what did you do with the boy? For me specifically, I would put a lot of emphasis on the boy, because at that point, I'm using a new tactic to try and make him realize like that was a human life. That was a boy. What happened to him? Took his equipment, got his boots. And then again, what did you do with him? So he hasn't responded to me yet. At this point, maybe I'm gonna stand up to let him know, like, I'm serious. I'm trying to change power dynamics. I'm gonna get up on my feet and let you know, like, this is a serious thing. So those are 3 distinct changes that I make every time I say that line. That shows the audience then that, like, I'm trying to achieve something, and the power dynamics in the scene, he's just blowing me off. Jen still doesn't respond. We're packing. I've got to go to Hammers before dawn. So Eva, at this point, realizes she's not going to get her way. She's not going to get whatever it is she's looking for to get him to admit. So she says, okay, fine, I'm not going. She changes tactic. Maybe this, if I say it, if you can admit who you've become, I'm not going to go with you. To which Jan just says, it'd be simpler if you stayed. Now they're like a married couple, so like, he's just basically, and the way the actor says in the movie too, is so cold, like, yeah, it'd be better if you stayed, like, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Which kind of freaks Eva out, and then she's kind of like, at this point, the power dynamic is like, Jan now has all the power, and Eva has no more cards left to play, so she just kind of submits and says, we'd better have something to eat before we go, because she clearly does not want to be left on the island alone in the middle of war zone. And she's just lost that whole power dynamic. At this point, if I was the actress, I would sit back down. So, that is that scene. If your character is repeating, there's a monologue too in the Oresteia right after Clytemnestra kills Agamemnon. She's like dragging the body across the stage, and she says there 7 times. There, there, there. But we know from the stage directions that she's of sound mind, so she's not going crazy. So I was talking to Mike, like, what could that possibly be? And she mentioned something about, like, later in a later monologue, she mentions how there's blood everywhere, and like the taste of the blood is in her mouth. Like it's very like a visceral monologue. And I said she literally could be pointing out blood on her clothes, in the bathroom, like there, like disgusted. Like this person that killed my child now has their blood all over me, and how am I going to wash this stain yet again? I have to get rid of you.
Could it also be like, it's finished, there,
Yeah.
kind of thing?
It could be like, oh my gosh, like I finally got some,
Closure,
yeah,
there.
some revenge,
Yeah.
for sure. And that's where like different actors are going to play the character different ways, and it's going to make a lot of great shows. That's why we can go see Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet and, you know, all these shows over and over again, because they're always done differently by different people. Great. Good insight. circumstances, you can make your discoveries, then you can go through and create your beats and objectives and units and super objectives. And then we're going to get up and give them a try when people are done. So we've got both by Johnny Lewis, Hard, and Biker Babes, right? And then, yeah, and then just to get a couple more male roles, I did make some copies of Martin's scene as well. And I saw some people bring it in too. So before we get to that, I also want to mention that most of this workshop has been on Konstantin Stanislavski's method. There are some other methods that can be useful to help you find your character and can be used in addition to or instead of Stanislavski. So the first one is physical exploration and different techniques which can really help you create the physicality of your character. I could lead a whole nother workshop on this. But briefly, there's different dynamics and directions. So if you think about a character, are they light or are they heavy? How do they move through their space? Do they move quickly? Do they move slowly? And this also plays off a lot of archetypes. So if you have maybe like a archetype of a heavy cop, that cop is gonna like move low to the ground and wide. It's gonna be cumbersome, like this. Versus if you have a 16-year-old secretary who weighs no more than 98 pounds, she's gonna be very light and airy and flowy. And so, you know, she's gonna be thin and just taking up very little space. And you can think about that when you're creating the character, literally just getting up and being like, if this character was an archetype, was an exaggerated caricature of themselves, what kind of motions, dynamics, fluidity would they have? Would they be heavy like a lead balloon? Would they, you know, do they press the air around them? Do they move things? Are they a force? Are they floating? They're so light that they're up in the air, just like moving in the wind. And then you can combine things like that, like they're light and narrow and moving forward, or they're heavy and dense and moving back. And literally just getting up and exploring those things help you. And then this is where a whole other workshop comes in. Being aware of who you are as a human being. Like I know when I walk on the outside of my feet, and I start from my heel and roll forward. I also know when I stop walking, if I'm not thinking about it, you can't really do it when you're thinking about it, which is the difficult part. Tell a friend in advance and have them take notes of how you move. But when I stop, I tend to stop and bow my feet like this. So that's something that I, Shania, know that I do. And if I'm portraying a character, Dorothy doesn't stand like this. Dorothy stands like this. So I need to break myself of all of my like habits and gestures and body and everything, which is really difficult to do actually. And then take on the physical aspects of Dorothy. And this is where if you see, not always, but a lot of times if you see an actor who's being recast in the same roles over and over and over again, and they're not really branching out into different roles, it's because they haven't really got down this this idea of releasing your body and bringing in a new body. So they happen to just play the archetypes that they themselves as a human being fit because they struggle to change that archetype. Maybe they always act with stressed shoulders. And so you're not going to have them playing a relaxed character if they just naturally always act with stressed shoulders. They have to learn how to release that and bring that into a different character to get a different type of role. And then the other one is method acting.
Yep.
Method acting is acting where actors strive for realistic performance by utilizing their emotional memories, their real memories that that human being has had before they were an actor or during their time as an actor. Living within the character, meaning if you're playing a drunk guy, for your character research, you're going to go get smashed. Or completing an immersion research, like Johnny Depp does this. If he's playing someone, he will go and live with that person and do exactly what they do for like weeks at a time. Yeah, so the thing with method acting is when it becomes so much of your life, or you tie it to your real life. If you're thinking about your dog that got hit by a car to make you cry in a scene, that's going to be emotionally taxing on you. And you need to know, like, you need to have had training to understand how to let that stuff go and walk away from it when you're done with work. When you leave the studio, you need to know how to leave that character in the studio. And if you do not know how to do that, and you do not feel comfortable, like you're at a place where you've practiced that and you can do that successfully every time, I don't recommend method acting because you can really get yourself in trouble. I did list a couple of famous method actors and their performances, and at the bottom you see an example of what I'm talking about right here. Is we lost an incredible actor, Heath Ledger, because he was a method actor and he could not step out of character and he overdosed. So it's very, very important for your health and safety, your mental health, that you take method acting very seriously. Don't go and get drunk to study a scene about being drunk. There's a lot of ways to create a very realistic, believable character without putting yourself in danger.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you do theater, and you've done a character, perhaps in a certain time period with a certain accent, and you've done this for weeks and weeks and weeks, do you find it difficult to come out of that accent?
Yeah.
I do too.
Yes, it is. So that's where it's a process called stepping out, and you can watch, there's YouTube videos, there's acting workshops and stuff that teach you literally how, again, a lot of it is physicality, knowing your character's physicality and literally dropping that physicality and stepping back into your own physicality to come back into yourself. Meditating, clearing your mind, getting rid of all the thoughts of that character, focusing on your own life, bringing things back into yourself. That's going to help you step out and away from that character and drop that accent if it's not something that you enjoy having at the grocery store.
But it is interesting because people, where are you from?
Right? Like, I'm just an actor.
I'm an actor.
So yeah, I do have a short list, abbreviated list of additional readings too. Some of these have just been suggested to me, or I've heard a lot of people reference in other works that I've read. Some of them I have read as well, so I thought I would do that for you, and all of my contact information is at the bottom of this. So with that, I'm going to hand out these final scenes to give everyone a chance to break down their given circumstances, objectives, beats, all of that. We'll take like, 10-15 minutes. I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. And then when people are ready, if you want to try some scenes out up here and try really getting into the character, that's cool. If you want like direction, if you want me to take a directorial role, I'm fine doing that to help you dig a little bit deeper, ask you some questions about the character you're playing. If you would rather not have that feedback, that's fine too. Any questions about anything?